I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and here today with me is Tom Calandra of the Calandra Report.
Hey,
Thank you for
Charlotte.
joining me.
Oh, thank you, and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Um, so last time we spoke, we talked about uranium, we talked about zinc, and I think briefly about copper. I'm interested in hearing whether there are any other commodities you're feeling optimistic about this year.
Well, I'm liking zinc, as
Mm.
I said. I just met with Pasinex, a company that actually produces zinc, direct shipping zinc. That means the ore goes straight onto a truck and gets shipped to the smelter. It's very profitable for this company, Pasinex.
Mm.
And there's another company owns a stake in that one, Eurasian. So zinc is great. It's being used as fertilizer, has other uses. Gypsum is interesting. We're seeing some gypsum mines because that's become not just profitable. The gypsum prices were risen like a lot of commodities the past a few months in the past year. But gypsum is also a fertilizer. And finally, I'd throw one out there only because I'm just starting to learn a little bit more about it. Tin, Tin, tin. It's an element. It's used not for tin cans that much anymore, right? Because that's been replaced, as we know, by aluminum and by alloys. But it's used for smelting to replace lead in electronics. And there are very few tin mines in the world. I mean, I think there's one in Australia. There's one in southern England southern England, yes, and that's trying to get on online again. And there are a few others in South America. So tin, and to be honest, except for one or two small companies that I know about, I wouldn't even know how to invest in tin. But that is way off the radar, and it's something that we could see some excitement about.
Oh, that's very interesting. How do you feel about kind of the trendier commodities right now, like lithium and cobalt? Are you interested in those at all?
I only own one lithium company. I only follow one lithium company, and I'll tell you before I tell you the name. And it's a fairly well-known lithium company. I have people approaching me about lithium companies left and right for the past 5 years, and I'm sure I could have made money on some of them. Some of them are tiny. There was even last night at a dinner we were having here in Toronto for Riverside Resources, there was a fellow from Germany who is running a small Ontario lithium company. There's so many I can't even keep track of them, and I'm a little wary. I'm much more of a believer in graphite and in cobalt. But as far as lithium, I own Nemaska, and Nemaska Lithium is online with a product in Quebec, and it's run by Guy Boissa. And Guy is an attorney that's been at this for about 6 years. It has a probably $120, $140 million market cap. So it's a substantial company with cash. It has an offtake agreement with Johnson Matthey, which is a battery maker. So I just have one decent-sized investment in lithium, Nemaska, and it's not a very speculative lithium. And I really I try not to follow any of the others. And so there you go on that one, Charlotte.
Okay. Yeah, good to know. So you follow a wide range of companies in your work. I'm wondering how you choose which ones to invest in. What are the criteria that you are looking for when you make an investment?
I'd say good question. Charlotte, in the past 6 or 7 years, I've been burned by so many people, like all investors have, and not just in junior miners, in scientific companies, in labs, and technology companies. And I think a lot of it comes down to focus and individual initiative, individual connections, individual brilliance in a way, and talent. And let's throw in a few other things, honesty, integrity, timing, capital.
Yeah.
I'm not going to mention luck. Not that I don't believe in luck, but so I'd have to say the answer to that question is people. I've been trying to pair the companies that I own and that I follow for the Calandra Report and the Calandra Network based on the people. We never can really know everything there is to know about a person, his motivation, her interests, her skills, sets and stuff, we often don't know a lot about ourselves or our children. But as best as we can make a judgment. And I've been making more judgment calls internally about the integrity, the work ethic, um, the intelligence of the people that I'm investing in.
Okay. On the flip side, what would be a red flag for you? What would make you go, okay, no, not that company?
I think, companies, you have to go to the proxy statements, the prospectuses, and the filings to look at salaries that these folks pay themselves. Not necessarily the options, but the actual salaries they pay themselves or the consulting companies they create to pay themselves. That's important. I think it's important, of course, to see insider buying or an insider stake. Not always important. I mean, let's face it, sometimes these things are run by very talented executives that may not be able to afford to own a few million shares that cost them, even a few $100,000. That's the way it is. But I do like to see ownership. If I don't see ownership, if I see confusing or promotional, what I call vaporware. We used to call it vaporware in the old days, in the technology days at MarketWatch. Vaporware is like when a company feels like it has to get anything it can out onto the paragraph, from the paragraph factory, and all you have to do is know how to read, whether it's English, Spanish, Italian, French, and you'll know whether it's vaporware or realware. So if they're using the market wires a little too much on the paragraph factory, I'm wary. And of course, I like to see people who are, let's just say, capable of fulfilling the goals that they state, and that those goals have to be pretty clear for the company. Strategic goals, strategic events, and if they have failed on that end in the past, I'd like to know why, and I'd like to see how candid they are about it. So if they lack if they lack that sense of openness and frankness about their failures, I stay away. And finally, I do like to see a company that's been in business for more than a few years.
Fair.
So if I don't see a company that's been in business a few years, the red light comes on, and that red light is not in Amsterdam. It's in my portfolio. So.
Okay, that makes sense. So I wanted to close by, since we're at PDIC, asking a few questions about the conference. What's the most interesting thing you've heard so far, and have you been introduced to any compelling companies?
Yeah, my friend Glenn Mullen from Golden Valley Mines took over as the president of PDAC this year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and Glenn's terrific. He runs 4 or 5 companies in Quebec, and he's a lifelong collector of royalties. I love royalties. I think that right now on the royalty end, we're going to see a few companies perform well. We already have. One that I followed early that's doing extremely well is Metalla, run by a young man, Brett Heath, from Canada and from California. So Metalla has tripled in price as it puts together royalty and streaming deals that are some sort of soft guarantee that one day soon people will see income. Income is important. I love when people are continue to build their resource and their reserves, even as they get flack for it. I think that. And they see success. I think Seabridge is a great example. Rudy Frank has done a very good job at sticking to his knitting and hoping for the day soon, and this is a theme, Charlotte, that I've heard here more strongly than at any time in the past 6 or 7 years, waiting for the day when major commodity companies, producers, seek to replace their reserves, right? And so that some of these beautiful big projects out there, gold, silver, platinum, copper, like Seabridge's KSM in British Columbia. There are quite a few. I can't name them all. Get bought for the reserve value because big companies need to replace their reserves so that they can start to develop them over a long timeline as their other reserves in their mines become depleted.
Okay. Well, that's everything from me. Thank you so much for joining me again today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Charlotte. Thank you.
Great. Once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with the Investing News Network, and this was Tom Calandra.